Alright guys, you got the boy Stingren here today, and today we're back with some reverse 1999 content, and today we're going to be going over all of the new Euphoria characters that will be releasing in patch 2.3. I wanted to make this video because, well, I know a lot of you are going to be having questions as to what characters you should eventually invest to first, so I'm going to be doing this video from the characters that you should least likely to invest to most likely being in a ranking system. So I'm going to try to do that for the video, and we're going to talk about it. So if you guys see here from the official announcement via Twitter, they did confirm that it will be coming in 2.3. We already knew it was coming in 2.3 if you guys kind of were aware of what's going on in CN, but we have the official date here being the 20th of February, which is going to be this upcoming Thursday, and it's going to feature the characters for Sotheby, Druvis, Shamane, Eternity, Lilya, Miss New Babel, and Bkorn. Now let's go ahead and talk about those characters, and we're going to talk about from the character I least recommend is going to be none other than Bkorn. Now you're probably wondering, why do I recommend Bkorn the least? First, let's go over her Euphoria, let's talk about its effects, and let's talk about why I recommend her the least. So anyway, at the end of the round, if this character was not attacked in this round, she would gain Moxie +1, which is pretty good because you know, extra Moxie, and Bkorn's strongest attack is her ult, which can scale up pretty high, especially if you have her higher portrays. And given that she's a 1.0 character, a fair amount of people do have her at P5, but assuming just P0, even still her base ultimate is 600%, which is not bad. So all things pretty good. And at the end of the round, inflicts 1 stack of weakness on enemy units that did not attack the user this round. Nice. Okay, free debuff by just existing if she's not hit. Nice. Gain damage dealt plus 10% against enemies holding a status down, negative status, or control status, which is good because she has a built-in status down built into her kit, so that's already fine. So that's an easy 10% damage dealt debuff she can get to herself without really having to do much. And when casting uninvited reviewer, which is the ultimate, it gives her penetration rate plus 30%, and before casting the ultimate, she will reduce the enemy's critical defense by 20% for 2 rounds. Now, why do I say that Euphoria is the worst? Well, Bkorn's Euphoria kind of tried to turn her into a DPS. While she can potentially be a okay single target DPS for reality, for plant, it's not like it was never really something that Bkorn tried to do in the first place. You know, we looked at Bkorn as a nice sub DPS unit because she had pretty good debuffs. She had a really nice ultimate scale. If you have her at P5, it scales all the way up to 800%, which is pretty decent. That's really strong for someone who is only just a, you know, a 5-star base unit, you know. Given she was a 5-star, I think they should have maybe focused more on her supportive capabilities like they did with her initial buffs. If you guys remember her initial buffs, they made her reality shred a little bit more stronger because they gave her a special focus weaken effect, which helped scale up the reality defense shred. I think that could have been the thing that they really stuck with her, because that would have kind of, you know, made her more solidified as being the best reality defense shred that we have in the game, which is still true to this day because most units are hitting like 20%. And she hits 25, which again, minor number, but of course it would have made the difference a little bit more potent given that she had that focus effect, which increased the reality defense shred effect, which, you know, would have been very, very helpful. But other than that, also her effects are a little inconsistent, particularly the second part where she inflicts weakness if she's not attacked. I mean, that's something you really can't control, and that's strictly just RNG, which is something that not a lot of people tend to be bothered with. You really don't want to be relying on a particular RNG effect to get a useful debuff for the enemies that don't attack into her. Granted, it's likely that you'll at least stick one because, again, you know, some enemy monsters just do a single target attack and that's fine. But if you get an AoE, then that's basically GG's. You won't be able to get that weakness debuff, which is a little annoying. There's no really unit in the game that, you know, can like take a damage for the character, or that jump in front of the character, then they take the damage. Then that could have made that effect a little bit more consistent. But other than that, yeah. But ultimately speaking, I just don't think that they should have made this into a DPS Euphoria. I don't. I think they should have made this more of a support Euphoria, because that was what she was always really good at. She was always really good at being a support as opposed to being a DPS. So that's why I don't really recommend that you invest into Bkorn. The DPS can be a little bit funky. You can run some really cool strats with her. I will be making teams videos for all the characters, but you can do some pretty cool things with her, like pairing her up with Anjo, because pairing her up with Anjo of course gives you the Beast Plant link, which of course gives you extra Moxie. And if you aren't hit with Bkorn, for example, Moxie +1 basically goes over to Anjo, which is pretty good. And of course when you cast her debuffs or even cast her own skills, then she can effectively put up some nice numbers. Again, having a nice 800% modifier with penetration rate plus 30% and lowering the critical defense, which actively goes first, makes Anjo's ult hit a little bit harder. So I mean, that's something that you can look at the bright side of things, is that if you were really a Bkorn fan, then she would at least have a decent pairing with someone like Anjo, I feel. But in terms of making her like her own main spotlighted DPS, that might be a little bit difficult given the current standard of how you can really get into Moxie. I think you would really need a good team that's really good with funneling Moxie for her, which obviously there's many units that can do that just straight up better. So that's why I don't really think it's worth it, because you're already spending a limited resource to try to make her work when there's already viable options in the game that could potentially make her better with, there's already units in the game that already perform the job better without really needing a limited resource. So I don't know, it just wasn't my cup of tea. Next up is going to be Shamane. Shamane is going to be my 6th most recommended unit here, which is going to be at the bottom 2. And let's go and talk about it. After another ally casts an ultimate, gain 2 stacks of rippling energy for self. After casting ultimate, consumes all stacks of rippling energy if able. For every 2 stacks consumed, grants Moxie +1 to a random ally. When consuming rippling energy to restore Moxie +1 to ally, grants additional 5 stacks of ceremonious to the target. After another ally casts an ultimate, gains an additional stack of rippling energy for self. And right before casting ultimate, gains 2 stacks of rippling energy for self. So he gets a lot of rippling energy essentially, and the rippling energy in fact is a positive status that grants ultimate mind plus 5%, stacks up to 10 times, and it's undispellable. Now again, it faces the same problem that Bkorn has, where it's trying to make him into a DPS where that was something he was never really good at. Admittedly, Shamane could technically be a little bit better, because P2 he can technically be a main carry. In this day and age, it's not the greatest thing anymore. When he first dropped, yeah, because there wasn't really too many other options you could run. But now when there's so many other viable options, you're not really looking to run Shamane as a carry in these day and ages. So this is a buff a little bit too late, honestly, for him. If this was something that came way earlier, then I think I would have been a little bit more positive about the buff. So there's that. I also don't like the fact that the Moxie that is distributed is random. Now this is really bad, because this can kind of set up some key situations where you might just be one Moxie off. And for example, if you had the ability to choose where the Moxie could go, then that's just the instant 5, which can then allow someone to cast ult, which is pretty nice. I mean, that's pretty good. So, but if you're not able to control it, then not that great, honestly. And again, there's other units in the game that can actively give Moxie by just doing their thing, which is like Vila, for example, when she's in her ult status. You know, there's a good amount of things that we can do to really help Moxie acceleration depending on the type of character. Some characters really have it really good built into their kit, so him trying to be a Moxie accelerator was kind of meh. It just isn't that good. It just isn't good. As I said before, P2 does make him into somewhat of an okay main carry, somewhat, very very okay main carry, but again, it's not really something that you should actively invest into. Even if he does give him some ultimate might as a bonus, of course you can pair him up with other characters like Lilya to give him even more ultimate might bonus, as well as also giving him crit rate bonus. And I believe if you do P2 and Lilya's buff, that's 100% crit rate, not counting any other additional bonuses like buffs from other characters, which of course can help him have him a little bit of overflow, which can maybe potentially improve his damage. I mean, that can improve his damage for sure, but ultimately speaking, Shamane's Euphoria is just not that good. It's kind of a jumbled mess, honestly. I don't think it was really something that was really specific for what he needed. And yeah. Next up is going to be Druvis III, who is going to be my 5th most recommended unit. Let's talk about what her Euphoria does. So let's talk about what it does, which primarily, spoiler alert, it's literally all for her main buff, which is called Circle of Life. So Its strength is Circle of Light and adds an extra effect. Damage bonus plus 15% and penetration rate plus 15, which is undispellable, really good. Strength is Circle of Life adds an extra effect, adds 1% of damage bonus for every 200% that she has, good. And Strength is Circle of Life yet more, and adding an additional effect again to attacking enemies in Petrify status does not remove Petrify, and it increases penetration rate with enemies against Petrify for an additional 25%, which is pretty good. And Strength is Circle of Life, adding an additional effect of attack based on her mental defense. Now actually, I'm actually going to say that given that she's the 5th unit here, technically from top to bottom, I mean from bottom to top, she's actually a pretty good Euphoria you can invest into for mono plant teams, honestly. All things considered, she actually does give quite a bit amount of buffs, a lot of damage bonus that she can provide, penetration rate, which is always really good, and of course a good amount of attack. The only thing that's really inconsistent is Petrify, because it's just how the status works itself, and that's really just the only direct problem that she has, is that she just, you know, Petrify just kind of sucks as a status, unfortunately. Until they start making more enemies more susceptible to petrification cheese, then that can definitely be a good thing. And this also opens up her DPS options. For example, you can run Jessica without more fear because of, you know, her being reality means she doesn't instantly dispel the petrification status. Spoiler, she also gets a Euphoria later on too, wink wonk. But yeah, I think it's a fine Euphoria. It's not nothing game breaking, but it's really just making her good. This also really makes Druvis into more so AFK support, because you don't really need to do anything, because Circle of Life is automatically applied to your plant-based allies by just existing. So you can literally just use Druvis as a placeholder. You don't necessarily have to do anything with her just to get the benefits of the buffs. All the buffs are just there regardless of what's going on. And again, since it's undispellable, you can simply just coast. You know, you can just chill, you can coast. As you can see, there's that Circle of Life, and has no duration limit, so you can kind of just coast. You can coast. You can see right there, undispellable effect, damage deal, leech rate, all that good stuff. So I mean, it's a good effect, honestly. I don't think it's anything super negative, but I do think it's just decent enough to where it makes the cut, honestly. Coming in at number 4 is going to be Eternity, our original waifu from patch 1.0, and let's go and talk about what she got in her Euphoria. After attacking, consumes all allies max HP by 10% and deals Genesis damage based on 7% of all allies combined HP to the target. Does not consume allies with 50% or current HP or less. Good. When entering a battle, increases all allies of HP by 5% of Eternity's HP. Really good. That's actually really good. At the start of the round, for every 10% of missing HP from allies, their damage taken is reduced by 5% for a maximum of 25%. Really good. And when allies attack, for every 10% of HP missing, they can gain 4% critical rate and 6% critical damage, which stacks up to 5 times. And if their current HP percentage is below 50%, then they can convert excess critical rate into critical damage, which is insanely good. So again, Eternity's effects are really good. It is a 1-to-1 conversion for the critical rate to critical damage conversion, which is fantastic, but it's really good. But she also faces the limited team problem, where of course there's only really one team that really benefits from her type of new playstyle, which is of course HP loss style teams, which of course is something like Babel, where you don't necessarily care about your main HP because Jay likes being at low HP anyway. Now this is actually really good for Jay, actually, because this is another good option of buffing crit rate, crit damage for him, which is something he needed, because with the current landscape of what you can run for J comps, you can run J, Babel, which I'll talk about her as well, Sotheby, and Semmelweis. So Semmelweis, so you have to give an additional 15% critical rate buff, is also giving extra damage bonus effects as well. Eternity is going to be able to give him more crit rate, crit damage, which is always fantastic, and he should be able to reach 100% if I'm not mistaken. He should be either close or relatively able to hit it to be able to access some of that extra excuse me, to access some of that extra critical damage conversion with attacks. You can technically run Lepera too if you wanted to, just to really further boost that crit rate. But keep in mind, Lepera does heal, so that might offset some of his damage, because since he's going to be more than likely the lowest member, he will get healed. And Lepera does heal pretty decently, so if anything, you may have to be a little bit more cautious with it. But other than that, I do think that there's potentially some really good combinations you can run with Eternity. I think Eternity Semmelweis will pretty much be the best core you can run if you're really looking to run like a low DPS style team. Again, the only real best team that makes utilization of that effect is Jay and Babel together, because of just the ridiculousness you can get off of it, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But anyway, yeah, but ultimately speaking, I don't think Eternity's Euphoria is bad. It's actually pretty good. If you want to invest into it, I recommend it. Pretty good. Next up is going to be Lilya. Now, Lilya is the distinctive character who has 2 different Euphoria paths. She has 2, which is interesting because no other character in the game has 2 different Euphoria paths, which is something I really wanted to talk about, but not in this video. But we'll talk about both of them, talk about which one is the most important, and we'll go from there. But again, she's going to be our number 3 spot in this video. So let's get right into it. Alright, what words like a victory song, which is the first one, when attacking, access critical rate into critical damage, which is fantastic. I raved about this when I first reacted to it. I said it was one of the best things they could have ever given her, which again, with Lilya's exceptionally high crit rate, it's super easy to allow her to convert, which is fantastic. After scoring a critical hit, she gains 1 stack of passion for self. When casting, a ultimate consumes all stacks of passion to gain an equal number of moxie, which is good, really good. And when extra action scores a critical hit, gains 2 stacks of ceremonious. When using aerial maneuvers, which is the AoE skill by the way, it triggers whenever it triggers a critical hit at rank 1, 2, or 3 incantation, performs an extra attack based off half of the total modifier of the original base skill. And this follow-up does count as an extra action, so that means her AoE will also allow her to follow up with an attack similarly to her main target, which is really good. And when casting an ultimate, deals an additional 30% reality damage for each stack of ceremonious, which is held up to 15 stacks toward the bonus, which is really nice. Let's talk about the second one, which is the Kamchaka Hunt. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. I apologize if I'm saying that wrong. Its incantation minus plus 5% when attacking, excess critical rates converted into critical damage. Again, fantastic. At the start of the round, gains 1 pointed bullet, and when scoring a critical hit, there's a chance to gain 1 pointed bullet. Pointed bullet is a positive status that inflicts critical defense down for 5% for 2 rounds, and it stacks up to 2 times, basically meaning a 10% critical defense shred. Okay. When using aerial maneuver, she would do the follow-up as normal, and after pointed bullet is triggered twice in 1 round, she would get incantation minus plus 20% for that round. So if you really want my honest opinion, what words like a victory song is miles better than the Kamchaka Hunt. Honestly, the real reason why is because 1, the ceremonious effect is actually pretty strong, because this gives her 30% reality damage boost on ult, which you can stack this up really high. With Lilya already having a really good base ult of 700%, that is really easy to power up. For example, you get 5 crits off of your extra actions. That's 150% extra damage, which is 850, which is really strong. And of course, if you have Lilya at some 40 portrays, which is more than likely for some people because she is a patch 1.0 character, then you can see here that it scales up even higher. So 775% plus the 150. I mean, that's pretty good. That's some pretty good numbers. So I do think honestly what words like a victory song is really good for what she was supposed to do as a DPS. I think it's fine. I get that they really tried to focus more on both paths. One of my minor complaints I would say about Lilya is that I wish they kind of just did both. I wish they could have put both of these bonuses into the Euphoria itself. I mean, I don't really think that there was indirectly nothing wrong with giving her an incantation might buff. Like, I don't really see the problem in that. Like, I like, it's only a 20% buff, technically 25 because of the first effect, but that's, and then on top of that, you have to proc pointed bullet twice to get the effect. It's not like it's something that you had to really screen for. Like, I don't know, but I feel like the Kamchaka Hunt in its entirety feels like a waste of time. Like it should have just been put into what Wars like a victory song. They could have maybe moved some stuff around to just give her incantation might plus 25%. And she could have maybe dropped the pointed bullet thing. Critical defense minus 10% is relatively low. I mean, you can stack it with other critical defense shredders like Isolde, for example, but you know, or Argus, you know, there's a world out there where you can run like Isolde, Argus, and Lilya, for example, for just a big, really nice critical shred team, and then you can run like a critical buffer like Lepera, or yeah, I guess Lepera because she can heal too. So you can run something like that to maybe, you know, have a benefit for you. But other than that, I don't know. I don't think that this is I don't really think that Kamchatka Hunt was really something that she needed. Like, I just think that should have just put it into the first Euphoria effect. That's like one of my minor complaints about this, is that she got 2 and the second one really just feels like it's just irrelevant. The problem with this is, if you guys don't know, you can only have one Euphoria path active. That's why I'm more critical of the Kamchatka Hunt, because if you go the Kamchatka Hunt path, you can't also then use what Wars Like a Victory Song in the same factor. You have to use one or the other. So what Wars Like a Victory Song gives you much more benefit, the critical rate, critical damage, which is existing on both. You get the stack of passion, which gives you Moxie acceleration, which is good. I mean, do you ever really want to ult back to back with Lilya? Debatable, because again, I think you really want to stack up her ceremonious effect to get a stronger ultimate. But if, I mean, at 850 into a 700 within the course of 2 turns isn't terrible. That isn't terrible, not at all. I don't think that's like, you know, just bad, but could work. And you know, the follow-up already existed on the AoE skill, which is also on the Kamchatka Hunt. I mean, yeah, that's just kind of my minor complaint. My minor complaint is that I don't think they needed to do a second Euphoria path for Lilya when she didn't really need it in the first place. I think everything she got with Wars Like a Victory Song was enough, and the effects that were primarily available on the Kamchatka Hunt could have just been put on what Wars Like a Victory Song, honestly. But that's that. All right, and coming in at number 2 is going to be Miss New Babel. Miss New Babel's Euphoria is really nice, but we'll talk about it. So anyway, when casting a new wave, if the target has a shield, stacks a new wave onto the existing shield cannot exceed 200% of the shield's maximum value. When all allies attack, critical rate increases. Critical rate increases by 1% for each 300 of the shield value that is currently possessed. J-buffs, hello! A new wave shield value increases by an additional 40% and increases the repulse damage of all allies to 25%. J-buffs, hello! When all allies are attacked, immediately triggers a rank 1 of a new wave up to once per round. After allies have repulsed it 3 times, immediately triggers another rank 1 of a new wave. Now, I don't know if you've heard me just say the same 2 lines over and over again, but this is one of the biggest J-buffs I've ever seen in my life. Like, while I will say that Miss New Babel's Euphoria is really good on its own, and it's also really good for shielders in general, such as Ezra, Yensei, Barbara, most likely Jay. I mean, not most likely, but very much likely Jay. But that's really just why I recommend her at number 2, is because for teams that traditionally run shielders, you pretty much now have a unit that can help overpower your shield, which puts you in a really good situation, especially in certain situations where you may not need to heal. The really cool thing is that the other 2 shooters I mentioned, Barbara and Yensei, at least can effectively heal, which is pretty nice. So that's a really good control core you can make just off the 2 of them. But with Jay and Babel, since you really don't care for healing, you put yourself in a situation where your shield is more than likely never gonna break. It's very difficult to break the shield unless your enemy just hits you really hard, which is possible. There are some fights that absolutely nuke you from all Kingdom Come, but that isn't something that's primarily common. It's not like every single fight you go into in the game is gonna be obliterating your HP, because that's just not the case. And this is frankly, J Babel is actually quite frankly one of the best teams that you can ever make in a game. If you've pulled J, congratulations, you got one of the best team cores in the game, which is undeniably really good. That's really good because you're making yourself pretty much and basically impregnable to most damage. You're basically never going to take damage provided that you're able to really keep your HP sustained. Another really cool core, I did talk about this with Eternity, with the whole J Babel and Semmelweis thing. You don't necessarily have to run Semmelweis and Eternity for them. It does accelerate, which means J can get his big shields up faster, but you can always just throw Kakania in the mix too and don't necessarily have to run Eternity. You can even technically run Eternity by herself, because remember, she's gonna be draining the HP anyway, and she's gonna stop once you reach 50%. So as soon as you reach 50%, and Kakania doesn't really care about the damage bonuses and all that anyway, because she's dealing damage based off of empathy. And remember, she's giving extra HP boost, which is again something that Kakania does like. So there's a lot of reason that you could run Eternity Kakania together. So that's also a really good option with you as well. But ultimately speaking, Babel's Euphoria is really revolutionary for the shield meta. For any character that you could think of that could put a shield up, well, not necessarily Ezra because the shields are kind of flimsy, but I think the main ones being Jay, Yensei, and Barb are because they have like the really strong shields. I think that Babel would be a fantastic addition to all those teams. She would be a fantastic addition. So honestly speaking, I would 100% recommend that you actually invest into Babel's Euphoria. 100%. I think it's one of the most immediate Euphorias you should take. And even not even talking about the #1 spot, she's still easily going to be one of the first units I max for sure, because this is just a really good Euphoria. I can't say nothing negative about it. I can't. I have no complaints. I have no little side-eye judgments, nothing. And then coming in at #1 is going to be none other than the final one ourselves, which is going to be Sotheby. Now, it's such a funny, and this is why I love Euphorias, man, because this is one of the most funniest things ever. Never in my life would I ever be saying, man, Sotheby is #1. Now, I've never in my life would it be saying this, but hey, man, Euphorias go stupid on, on certain characters anyway. But anyway, let's talk about what it does, and there's that. So, Cure. If remaining HP falls below 40% after being attacked, she will trigger it immediately, increasing the stack by 1 round, and it becomes stackable. So that means she can cast multiple cures, which is really good. Her Insight 3 gets upgraded to the duration of cure, and her duration of cure applied by concentrated essence is increased by 1 round. Very good. And when entering a battle, for every 1000 HP max HP that's up, she has increased HP healing, which is good because she was. I mean, this is a really good one. We'll talk about that in just a moment. This is actually a really important one. But when entering the HP for every 100 attack that Sotheby has, she will gain poison damage plus 2%. Nice. And at the start of the round, gets 1 stack of Duality Potion itself. Okay. So let me see. So dual use medicine, which is the new effect that she gets, it's a new positive status. After attacking, consumes all stacks. For each stack consumed, applies poison to the target. And at the end of the round, the target takes Genesis damage up to 30% of the user's attack with 2 turns, and grants all allies cure for 2 rounds, stackable for up to 2 times. I mean, pretty much just gives you everything just off of this dual medicine effect, because it gives you the regen and it gives you the poison. But again, Sotheby's Euphoria is. It's perfect. it's perfect. I mean, it fixed every issue that she had. First issue was Cure itself. Now, a lot of people considered Sotheby to be kind of one of the worst healers in the game because of how Cure works. Cure works not like your standard heal. When you take a big hit, you want that heal immediately. You want to be like, oh man, my team, we're all at, 10% or less HP. Well, if you don't have a cure going up that turn, you're not going to get healed, and that's going to be it. And even then, her cures weren't healing you that much. It was only healing you like a tiny bit, which was a effective problem. So that's why a lot of people opted in for main pure healers that can simply do the job and not just have to wait for a end of round or start a round effect for the cure to proc. That way you can at least be safe. This is a really annoying thing that Sotheby had to face, but now she's gone from essentially one of the worst to one of the best, because you can stack up cures now, stacking it up to 2 times. Now, stacking it basically gives you a lot of healing. There's a lot of scale that you can get off the healing effect of curing, especially since she now gets an extra additional healing bonus, which does effectively fix her low healing amounts, especially if you combine her with with cubes that can give you a healing bonus effect as well. So there's a really good amount of synergy that comes off this. This is primarily, I think she has the strongest healing boost up based off of HP boost, which is kind of insane. But all things considered, it is very strong. It's a very strong regen. Now you pretty much always heal yourself up to maximum if you have double stacks active, or even just one stack depending on what you have and what's available in your team. So really good buffs. And the really cool thing about Sotheby is that while she is primarily one of the best options you can run in poison comps now, because she is primarily still a poison unit, you can still use her in other teams. You know, I think it's actually pretty viable for you to actually go and use her as a healer in other teams, provided that you're sure. Obviously, if you have any of the main pure healers that obviously run well in other teams, and you may not necessarily need to run a specific unit, you can always just throw Sotheby in there, because again, her heals are going to be fantastic. So if you really needed her for just the healing effect, that's going to be good. That's going to be a reason that you can actually take her. So I do think 100% that you can use her in pretty much any team in the game, provided that you wanted the healing. Any sort of healing that you could have ever wanted, Sotheby can actually take care of you. That's kind of the reason why I inched her over Babel, because I think Babel only excels with shield meta, but Sotheby can be used anywhere. She can be used anywhere, just whatever you need a healer. Like if you need a healer, for example, you only have one healer and your one healer is like 2 fairy or something, and you're like, oh man, I have a second healer for another team. Well, there's Sotheby right there, chilling, waiting, hands folded, waiting for a bodyguard. like I mean, there's nothing really else I can really say about that. I think it's just ultimately speaking that she can really just manifest herself into being into a really good team regardless of what's going on, and that's really good. I do think also that I think also too, the poison damage bonus also kind of turns into a really reliable sub DPS too, because again, for every 100%, I mean for every 100 attack, not 100%, but every 100 attack that she gets, that's another poison boost. And if you have her own unique cube, which is her mournful face, that's also going to be able to really boost up the damage. But I think Willow wants to use it more. If you're really looking to run a dedicated poison team, I think Willow wants it more than she, so you may have to necessarily give it up. But if you wanted to throw it on Sotheby because you wanted the extra effect just for her to kind of nuke with her ult, I mean, that's something that you can do as well. It's not nothing that's really anything insane, but for all intents and purposes, I think it's a really good Euphoria. I think it's perfect. I just think it's a perfect Euphoria. Honestly, I think it's a 10 out of 10 Euphoria. It was everything that she needed. And this is what I love about this system, is that when they really hit the nail on characters like this, where they give them everything that they really needed and fix all of the glaring issues without trying to turn them into something else that they never really were meant to be, this was strictly to the point. It fixed her bad healing. It fixed her poison distribution. It fixed her inconsistent, it fixed her AP hungry nature, being able to not really put up cure. But I mean, it fixed everything. It fixed everything. Like, and it made everything decent to good. I would say good to above good. I'd say that, but that's it. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video. So again, just to kind of go down the list, we have Bkorn, Shamane, Druvis, Eternity, Lilya, Miss New Babel, and Sotheby as our main listing options. And if you guys enjoyed the video, let me know in the comment section below. I appreciate you guys so much for watching the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.